So we knew former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was going to get a pardon. That's what our sources were telling us. The question was the timing. The timing was this afternoon. Let's bring in our panel. Jeff Mason, White House correspondent for Reuters, Susan Friccio, chief congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and Jason Riley, Wall Street Journal columnist and senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. So right off the bat, Susan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think what Karl Rove said was spot on. The behavior by Judge Emmett Sullivan in this case was bordering on bizarre, where he absolutely refused to dismiss the case, despite the fact that the Justice Department was refusing to prosecute it because there wasn't any evidence that Flynn did anything wrong. The case from the get-go was so utterly questionable. He pled guilty to lying for something that wasn't even a crime. The FBI appeared to be highly politically motivated in going after General Flynn. If anything, the wrongdoing was on the part of the government. So this was a case where others may find objectionable reasons to complain about Trump's pardons. This is a case where I think it was clear-cut that Flynn was targeted, perhaps politically, and that there was never a real case against him.
Jeff, your thoughts as someone who covered Flynn as the National Security Advisor, and are we looking at a lot more pardons in the final days of this administration?
Well, Mike, to your second question, I think the answer to that is yes. I was in touch with a couple former White House officials today who said they absolutely expected to see more pardons, that this is one unfettered power of the president, or presidential power, rather, that this president, and not the only president, enjoys using. And so he's got a couple months to do so. Expect to probably see more. Broadly, on the decision about Michael Flynn, and the reaction to it, it just continues to show the divide over that issue and over the Russia probe. You have Democrats, of course, saying that this is an abuse of power by President Trump, and you have the White House and its allies saying Michael Flynn should never have been prosecuted in the first place. Okay,
we have some handy-dandy stats we can put on the screen for you. Let's start with President Trump and clemency. Clemency's granted. There you see it on your screen. 45 overall, 29 pardons, 16 commutations. President Barack Obama, over 8 years, 1,927 clemencies granted, 212 pardons, 1,715 commutations. And then President George W. Bush granting clemency 200 times, 189 pardons, 11 commutations. Jason, your thoughts?
Well, I would agree with what has been said. You know, you can find a lot of fault with President Trump and some of the other uses of his pardon power, clemency power, but this, I think, is a clear example of someone getting railroaded, and it was the right thing to do, regardless of what you think of President Trump or Michael Flynn. I think they were caught up in something bigger than both of them in this case. The FBI was duped into by Russian disinformation, into investigating a presidential campaign. That is the big picture here, and I think this is absolutely the right thing for President Trump to do in the case of Michael Flynn.
Okay, it's also Thanksgiving Eve, usually when everybody and their brother is on the roads or on a plane or wherever, going to moms, grandmas, etc. You've also got some Democratic officials, including the mayor of Denver, taking some heat for basically telling folks to stay home. Meanwhile, he got on a plane and went to Mississippi. Tonight, the mayor of Denver has issued an apology. Let's put it on the screen, saying, quote, as a public official whose conduct is rightly scrutinized for the message it sends to others, I apologize to the residents of Denver who see my decision as conflicting with the guidance to stay at home for all but essential travel. I made my decision as a husband and father, and for those who are angry and disappointed, I humbly ask you to forgive my decisions that are born of my heart and not my head. Susan, your thoughts?
Sure, as long as they forgive other people who are doing the exact same thing he's doing right now. That's the problem. The government looks terrible in this situation. It's similar to what happened in California when Gavin Newsom was out at a $225 a plate gathering without wearing masks with hospital lobbyists while telling everybody else they needed to go home at 10 o'clock. It doesn't sell. And right now, you're calling it lockdown fever. People are tired of it all. Luckily, there are 3 American-made vaccines with greater than 90% effectiveness readily available, about to be distributed. So this is all going to end soon. The virus is weakening. These virus outbreaks are peaking. They're going to decrease. Hospitalizations are far less than they were in the spring. There's good news around the corner.
Jeff, my relatives were going to come down from New York. They are not. Your thoughts on this travel gate, if you will?
Well, it's a really tough time for lots of people and families making decisions about what's right for them and how to handle this with the obviously growing risk of coronavirus at this time. And you get some mixed messages. You have some leaders who are pushing people not to get together and others who are making decisions to do so themselves. So the mixed messages has also been a part of this pandemic for the last 10 months. You see a difference between what President Trump is saying and what President-elect Biden is saying. That's just kind of part of the narrative right now.
Jason, we're up against the clock. A quick comment from you on this issue.
Yeah, a lot of people have talked about the hypocrisy, but what's noteworthy to me is how you see a lot of liberal Democrats in blue states and blue areas of blue states also saying, I don't care what the CDC says. I can take precautions, do this safely. I can weigh the costs and the benefits and the risks and do this safely. And I'm tired of this nanny statism. We knew conservatives were there already. What's interesting is that a lot of people on the left seem to be fed up with this paternalism going on, and I don't blame them.